this, and this one, and this. Oops. And let's see if we can get that together. And I was going to say I've got it together. I think that's probably an overstatement. I don't think I ever have it together. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Louis B. Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland. I don't even have the words. Ecstatic when with the guest that I have this morning, and when first approached about possibly having Malcolm Bruce on the show, I just flipped out. Malcolm, I'm honored. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Louis, it's my honor. Thank you for having me on your show. So it's great to be here.
I'm just, like I say, I'm blown away. Having grown up listening to Cream and being a huge fan of Jack Bruce, of your dad, I was just thinking, in bed the other night, I'm thinking, what was song Taylor? I mean, just some of the solo, just everything. And thinking about that and really feeling it deeply, the memories that I have of hearing the songs, it's funny. I've got to say, with and I mentioned to you off air, my audience is aware, with the Lewy body dementia, some things that I did this morning, I can't remember, but I have these really vivid, accurate, at least they feel like they're accurate memories of things from decades ago. And I was just been flooded with them.
Music. I mean, I am not an expert, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard stories about people that have had things like dementia, and the last thing to go is music. Music remains beyond everything. And even as a musician, I've heard stories that amazing musicians can, even if they can't communicate with humans anymore, they can still play music, actually play an instrument. So I think there's something about the brain, and I'm sure you know much more than I do about this, but parts of the brain that retain the musical aspects seem to remain longer than other parts.
So that's one of the things that I have spoken with people that do have expertise in it, and I've read a lot about it in the last year, especially, and understanding that with the music. And one of the things they is suggested to caregivers is know the music that the person that you're caring for liked or loved, and have that for them. And
make sure it's country and not Western. That's basically what you've got to know. No, I hate that Western music.
What?
Oh, not again.
I love your sense of humor and your warmth, by the way. We were talking off there. Seriously, you don't know Malcolm Bruce when you interview someone. And I've had this experience. I've done the gig for like 25 years. And I remember having, and I'm not going to mention any name in particular, but I remember having a guest on my earlier radio days, spelled with a Z, of course, and that this individual who I really liked, I was really excited, and just was not the person that I thought he was. It was like when we spoke off air. This was when it was just radio, just audio, and he was entirely different. It was entirely different. And others who I've been, again, really looking forward to having on, that just it kind of blows my image of them. It's like, I'm almost sorry. This sounds
there is that there is that thing that people say, don't meet your heroes. Sometimes that's true, but I think it's also that we can get there's this particular thing about doing something like this where you have to sort of let go of your ego a little bit. Don't worry about how you come across, and that can be really challenging. It's like, do I look okay? And how did I? No, maybe that sentence I could have said that sentence a little better. I could have structured it better. Can we just do that again? Oh, can we just do another take? Yeah. So you kind of can't do that with radio and podcasts. You've literally just got to kind of get in the moment, and whatever happens, and then you have to let go of it. And and maybe in the past people weren't so used to behaving like that in public, artists, but now it seems to be just like, okay, whatever happens. And so, yeah, I think I'm getting used to it all the time, just being myself, whatever that means.
Yeah,
So,
and I do want to say, to be accurate, that's rare for me to encounter somebody
I
that
think the shades help. If you wear protective eyewear, it kind of, like, what is he thinking? What is he really thinking?
What's he really thinking? What are you really thinking? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
they don't get to see the eye roll.
I could see his eyes. Yeah.
I say something, whatever, and I don't get to see the audience doesn't get to see.
I'm just protecting
your eyes.
I'm protecting my soul. My soul.
So lots to talk about. I am ecstatic about the album, by the way, and am I allowed to say I've been privy to listen to it? Yeah, I can say that.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, that's why,
yeah,
of
not
course,
played them,
we want you to hear it.
not played the other ones on air until release date yet. Wow, I didn't know what to expect. I was excited when, hearing that, and Deborah Bonham, who's been on the show, and I was very excited to listen to it, and it just blew me away. It's like, yes, because sometimes, sometimes people try to redo something or make some, and God, I hate to say so. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. It's like, oh, let me stick with that. Let me stick with. I love this. I absolutely love the album. And by the way, it will be released. It's Heavenly Cream, an acoustic tribute to Cream, on the 3rd. And this blows me away too. CD and vinyl formats also, and of course all the digital. I'm delighted that there's going to be a CD, because I still have a
me too.
In a certain
I like CDs.
Yeah, I do also. Listen, my last car had a cassette player in it. So I see there's no cassette, by the way, for old folks, no 8-track, but the vinyl coming back. That blows my mind also.
I think people love vinyl, people that really love music, the sound of vinyl is amazing. So I think especially for something like this that will appeal to perhaps the older generations as well as younger people, hopefully. The older generations tend to, it's different now, isn't it? Like, we've got our phone and people tend to sort of go on Spotify or whatever, and they'll just kind of scroll through, or YouTube or whatever. But there was a time, as you just said, 8-track, but vinyl, and the sound of it and the physical aspect of taking your hand and putting a needle on the record, and it goes, and then it's got only a limited amount of space on each side. What is it, 22 minutes to make it sound, keep the quality. Of course, you can make it longer, but the quality, the sound quality is affected by the length of each side. So there's all these kind of limitations and physicality of the music, and you're experiencing that. I just love it. So Malcolm, and I think the first run of the vinyl are cream colored as well.
I love that. Again, great sense of humor, Malcolm Bruce. When you're saying that about vinyl, and I have a cousin, a Canadian cousin, who it makes, I'm going to say, by the way, we have the same initials, and first cousin, and he makes me look sane. Seriously, he's, in my opinion, but he always had loved vinyl, still does. There's something about vinyl. And I remember years ago, he had a special amplifier, and I'm going to use the term, smuggle tubes and things in from the States when I was going up. You're crossing the border. It's like, do you have anything to declare? And I declare I've got some tubes in the trunk for my cousin. But it's just, he's very particular about the sound. And he said, only vinyl. And
yeah,
I think interesting.
I think it does have a particular quality to it, a sonic quality that and I'm not a technical person in this regard, but I mean, people could argue digital lacks a certain low mid frequency that analog has, and so
Yes.
it affects you physically in that way. And so, you know, we're all listening to MP3s now on the internet or on our phones or whatever, and you can't really tell the difference on the surface, but something lurking inside is lacking. Might feel like it's lacking for some people. Anyway, people have the
Therefore,
option.
the vinyl. I think
Yeah.
that's great. I think that's great. Tell what led up to doing Heavenly Cream. Give us
Wow.
the background.
It's karma, man. It's karma. Well, I mean, it really came through Pete Brown, the Cream lyricist, who sadly, he was like our best friend. All of us who were involved on this record loved Pete, and he passed away earlier this year. But back in 2017, he was chatting with the record label Quarto Valley Records about his documentary, which is called White Rooms and Imaginary Westerns, which still hasn't seen the light of day. But he was talking about that, and it's an amazing documentary with all the members of Cream being interviewed. Martin Scorsese's being interviewed on that, and Mark Waters directed it, who ended up directing the documentary that goes along with Heavenly Cream. We have a whole film that's out at the same time about the making of this record. So Pete was chatting with the label and they about this other project, and then they sort of started getting in discussions about why don't we make a Cream tribute, but with a difference, an acoustic tribute to Cream. And so they cut this deal, and then Pete approached me to get involved. He approached Rob Cass, the producer, and Mark Waters, who I mentioned, to shoot a documentary of the making of the whole thing, and interviews and all of the fly on the wall stuff. And so yes, it was right back in 2017, and then we went into a studio called Sensible Music for the early couple of sessions, and then we moved to Abbey Road to do the bulk of it. And that was all in 2018. So it's been a kind of long process. Yeah. Then by the time it was ready to be released, we hit the pandemic, and that sort of slowed everything down, I think, for the label, and for us and for the whole world. And so yeah, it's just seeing the light of day now. And it's a strange thing because some of the key people, like Ginger Baker's on the record and he passed away. Bernie Marsden is on the record and he just passed away a few weeks ago. Amazing guy. And he's all over this record, from the band Whitesnake. Pee Wee Ellis is on the record. He passed away. So we've kind of got, and Pete Brown, as I mentioned. So we've got, it's become like this poignant historical record of these guys that are suddenly no longer with us. You know, just a lovely thing for us to remember them by, but also for people that really understand that history to kind of have this treasure in a way. And I think it is, I mean, it's so hard for me to know how it comes across because I'm so close to the whole thing. And I've been close to it my whole life because I grew up with my dad, and I've played Cream's music with Ginger's son on the road. And so, you know, I'm so close to it that I just don't even know how it comes across to other people anymore. So I'm really grateful that you're saying that you like it, because I mean, obviously it's an incredible lineup of people that we got to, you know, contribute to the record. But even that, I just don't, it's so subjective for me at this point. You know, I mean, I know Paul Rodgers is an incredible singer and musician, you know, but I don't know how it comes across to other people, him singing Born Under a Bad Sign, although I did hear it again recently and I loved it. You know, I think he's just awesome. So anyway, but that's up to you, because I mean, as I say, I have no idea.
Well, I will say to you, you said that I like it. I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't mean that, but correct. I love it. And it's great when younger people love it. I can relate to back when these songs came out, when these, you know, and so you know, you'll get some people out there that say, oh, it wasn't as good as it wasn't, you know, they always want it. I love it.
And I mean, we weren't trying, you know, when we're absolutely not trying to make it as good as I mean, it can't be as good as the original thing, because the original thing was so unique. And those three guys were so unique, and them in combination, and the writing and the improvisation and all of that, it's unprecedented, and it's never been paralleled that within itself. You know, there've been other things in their own way that have been just as good, in my opinion. But in terms of that format and the power of those people, you can't beat that, you know. So we took an approach of honoring it, but we would never try and compete with it at all, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's the point. I mean, Eric's just amazing, and he's still out there. You know, and I'm a fan of my dad. I'm so proud of what he achieved in his career, you know. So it's, in a way, it's just a nice thing for us to do. But we got all these lovely people that also love that music and are part of the story. I mean, Bobby Rush, for goodness sake, you know, to have him on the record is just incredible. So, you know, and Deborah, as you mentioned, Deborah Bonham, amazing person. Joe Bonamassa, and Ginger himself. You know, it was just wonderful to have him in the studio for a couple of days doing stuff as well. So yeah, I think we're all really pleased.
When you think of, when you're saying that, I do want to say that I had a young friend that was in the studio when I was off air and played some of the cuts, who was not familiar with Cream.
Mm-hmm.
Young, he was young. You know, I give him deference.
Yeah. So that can happen.
I just was curious. Malcolm, as to how he would feel about the music, and had him listen to, you know, Heavenly Cream, not, you know, not, and he got into it. It was interesting. It was, you know, of course he said, "Can you forward that to me?" I said, "No, I cannot."
Well, give him 3 days, then you can.
3 days, yeah, 3 days. But it was interesting because I was curious at what his reaction would be to that music. He's asked me, we've done this. He's asked me to listen to, you know, some of the stuff he listens to. Some of it I like, some of it's okay, some of it I really don't like. And I asked him on this. I was curious for how someone would feel that didn't know Cream. How would they feel about Heavenly Cream? And it stands on its, of course, it stands on its own. But when you were saying, well, it's not a competition, yet it's going to be very unique also for younger people.
Yeah, I mean,
am I making sense? Please.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's, I guess we're living, to some degree, we're living in a postmodernist era, which means that we are looking back. We're looking back somehow. And sometimes art the art itself will be postmodernist in the sense that it's looking back on previous genres of art, and it's looking back somehow ironically, you know, it's looking back and kind of reordering the elements, or taking certain elements and recreating them or whatever. So this, in a way, you know, Cream has become, I mean, we call it classic rock, but I don't really like that term. But it's like a classical form of music compared to what we do now, where it would be some jumble, like some kind of what would be the right word? It's just a different thing now. I mean, I'm not talking about pop music, which is just entirely predictable, still be brilliant in where we are at this point, but it's much more straight ahead. But I think the really creative side of music now is something that's very, very different. So yeah, I don't know what like a proper young person would think of this, although I've done lots. As I said, I worked with Ginger's son Kofi, and we did around 100 shows playing Cream's music and sort of turning it into our own version of it, which is what Cream did originally. You know, they didn't play it note for note, they just improvised and expanded and went with the feeling of it. And I think people can relate to that. You know, it's not rigidly defined, and you can hear that in what they did, because Cream themselves. I mean, I used the example with Paul Rodgers, Born Under a Bad Sign. So that's a song, Albert King, right? So,
yes.
You know, the way Paul approaches that on this record is completely unique to him. The way he uses melisma in his voice, the way he uses patterns in his voice to go from one note to another, and the choices he makes in each moment, and his style turns it into something so unique for him. Now, if some other singer sang it and they really embraced that, they would make it sound completely different again. So it's organic. It's music it's malleable. You know, you can pull it in all different kinds of directions. And I think that's what made Cream so unique. You've got those songs, but you can approach them in so many different ways. And I think that's, for me, that's what makes it so satisfying to play this music, because it can be forever fresh, being recreated always, just, it's got a really organic element to it. And that's what makes it, to me, classical music, because it's got these kind of motifs, which can be stretched and contracted and pulled. And, you know, Spoonful's another example of that. It's, you know,
yeah, that's an oldie.
I mean, and you've got this, you've kind of got two riffs in that, or two sort of different shapes, and those shapes can be moved around and inverted, and that's what we do. Like I make classical music as well, contemporary classical music, and that's what we sit there doing. We will notate stuff. What would happen if I elongate the third note? And, you know, because that's that's music. It's three-dimensional. It's you can pull it and push it. It's not rigid. It's not fixed. And I think with pop music, it's a different thing, or can be a different thing, where there's an assumption that it fits into a particular mold, and that limit means it's commercial. But I don't agree with that, and I know my dad never agreed with that. And there was that little moment of 2.5 years in the late 60s where he kind of got away with it, you know, like it was a commercial band, but it was a creative band, you know. And of course there are other examples of that, but a lot of the time the industry takes over and pushes people into boxes. So for me, Cream has always meant that. It's meant a little window of actually being creative that still became a global phenomenon for a second, you know. So anyway,
no, please, I'm fascinated by that observation and your explanation about some things, Malcolm. Wow, that's fascinating about that. I hadn't thought about it like that. I want to say most people hadn't. I can't speak for most people. I hadn't thought about it quite like the way you're saying. I understand something can be interpreted differently by a different musician.
Yeah, but I think also the blues. I think the blues itself has become stayed in that sense. I mean, maybe I'm being arrogant by saying this, because there are incredible blues artists out there, but it's wide open, you know, and it's not about this 12-bar, you know, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. It's not about the harmonic. It's about the feeling. And it's about making it your own. And I think that's what those great British bands did. They stole Black American music, essentially, and they kind of reinvented it and brought it back to America in a slightly sort of different shape. And I think then it also worked the other way around as well. We had other artists from America coming to the UK. So it became this kind of collaboration. And, you know, all right, maybe blues purists and jazz purists would criticize me for saying this, but I think it's just that we've only just begun understanding the full potential of this music, you know, and it's a hybrid music. It is, I mean, let's blame the slave trade, you know, let's say that black people were forced to leave their homelands, and forced through terrible, terrible oppression to actually become globalized. And through that awful oppression, actually something was born. The artistic side of it and the cultural side of it was born. What was born was something that is now like a synthesis of everything. And I think that if the world eventually goes in the right direction, it realizes the strength of that synthesis, you know, as opposed to I'm more right than your right, my culture's better than your culture, or whatever. Yeah. Like there are, and I'm not saying we should not respect different cultures, but there's also this thing, you know, where we're enriching each other, all these cultures. And of course we're now one culture. We always have been, really. But so I just think the blues based music is a part of that transition. And I think that all of it, I can see it all heading into this beautiful unity of expression. And it's not limited to like what radio program is say should be,
Should
or
be that what, yeah.
heads of labels that whose dad owned the label or whatever, so that they like they don't even know anything about music, but they know about the bottom line, and so that affects the decisions that are made in terms of what is allowed to be promoted and what isn't. And we need to move past that, because there's so much to be said and so much to be explored. So but I think that's a cultural, I think that's a statement about everything we're going through at the moment. Culturally, we're a bit sort of stuck, and we're seeing that we've all got to hug each other and hug the trees and stop hurting each other, and maybe music's part of that healing. Could be.
I hope a dear friend of mine is listening, because he's always he's a dear friend, and I love him. I know he loves me, but he's teasing me about hugging. I want to hug, can I give you a hug before we go? And, oh, Louis, you in the hugging, and yeah.
No, I mean, but it's a metaphorical, I'm not saying that everyone should hug each other, although it's quite nice, right?
Why not? I mean, if
lovely.
Both parties are willing to accept the other.
I mean, but like, there was a recent phenomena. I mean, I practice meditation, do yoga, but there was a recent phenomena called laughing yoga. And so they would just get groups of people, they still do it, just get groups of people together and they laugh. And you just laugh, and that physical getting in your body, out of your head of like trying to be right or trying to win, and just laugh, And so hugging is probably a little bit of a similar thing, just stop being, stop being so uptight about everything.
Malcolm Bruce, I agree with you 100%. I agree with you. When you said that, a couple of things reminded, when you said Willie Dixon, I remember having the album I Am the Blues, who knows how many decades ago. But also Muddy Waters did Electric Mud, where I remember some people, as you were saying, purists, didn't like it. I don't want to say, trashed it, said, did not like it. Let me just say it like that, because I can't remember all the things. And I remember writing a letter to Downbeat magazine, because I loved it. And I loved the older stuff by Muddy. And this was a long time ago, Electric Mud. But why not be open to his, just listen to it. Listen to it with an open mind, not comparing all the time. I hope this doesn't sound too trite, Malcolm Bruce, but I love to cook, and it's like, this needs a little more. Here's the recipe made as is great, yet I like a little more whatever in it, or I'm going to put a little spoon of Marmite in it or something. So just because someone else says this is the recipe doesn't mean you can't kind of make it your own, and just open your mind to that. Open and stop being closed-minded. The purist with music, this is classical, or this is jazz, or this is whatever. You'd love to go back to those musicians originally and tell them that, be it Beethoven or whomever.
Oh, yeah. And also, that's what we discover that's what we discover in meditation, is that there's only one absolute, and it's the absolute is the only absolute. So everything else in experience is relative, and that means it's relative. It's relative, it's contextual, and sure, I mean, there's incredible things about pure music, whether it's Anton Webern or Bach or whatever, Robert Johnson or those early Bob Dylan records. I don't know how you would even term purity, but it's relative, it's culturally based, and we're now in a different time. We're in a time where there could be a really positive side to globalism, not the negative side of control and unelected people telling us what to do, all of that nonsense that's going on in terms of globalism, but a positive sense of exploration. I mean, there's a great Hermann Hesse book called The Glass Bead Game. I don't know whether you know that book, but it's hilarious, because he kind of gets plucked out of his kind of working class family and put in this university, and his whole life becomes about making the connections between one thing and another, whether it's mathematics and philosophy and music. And so he just it becomes this really, 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 really complex thing where it's all going on. At the very end of the movie, he goes off walking and he dives into the lake, and that's it. It's the end of the story. So it's just
wow.
like all that intellectual stuff kind of, and then it just meant nothing. But in the game of life, that's beautiful, you know, but it's all relative. It's not the absolute experience. It's a relative thing. So you can't say it's right or wrong. It's all about where you're looking at it from, you know. And so that brings humility. It brings an openness that anything and everything is possible, as long as you're not hurting somebody else, you know. Hopefully not hurting somebody else.
Yeah.
But then I suppose you're hurting somebody to go, no, the blues doesn't sound like that. You're really upsetting me. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll stop doing it then.
Or you can stop listening then.
Oh yeah. No, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I'm not telling, I'm suggesting. No, you're telling me.
Yeah.
And
You made me think of people that, you know, it's interesting because as things progressed from when I first started in radio with social media, etc., and people feel emboldened on social media to say things. And I remember in the early days,
things.
I would see things, and I'm about the show or about me or Louis, you're too this or you're whatever. I don't like that. Don't turn it off. No one's forcing you to listen. Hopefully no one's forcing you to listen to me or my show or my guest or whatever. Turn it off. Why would you?
Yeah, but it's also not about.
You have to get on and.
But it's not about the content. I mean, people that behave like that, there's something being triggered inside of them, so they're holding on to.
I agree.
Lack of resolution, and so they're placing it onto something within their experience, but it's never about that. When people get angry, it's never about what they're angry about. It's something deeper. It's maybe a trauma that's being held on, a tightness in the breath, or, you know. And so, like, again, you know, we're all arguing about all these things in the world at the moment, and but there is no answer. The only answer is love. The only answer is to loosen the grip on being right all the time, and to,
I'm with you,
you know, to listen to each other and to stop killing each other. And you know, it's crazy. I mean, it's deeply upsetting to what's going on in the world. But all we can do is spread love. We can't spread more war or more aggression. It never works, because it's just perpetuating the same energy, you know. So we have to take the higher ground. I hope people will eventually realize that, you know.
And I of course I agree with you, Malcolm Bruce, when you're saying that about something that I have said for since people point the finger, yet they fear the mirror. They want to tell you, but they don't want to take a look at themselves. They don't want to do any self-examination or.
Yeah, there's consciousness.
They want to point the finger. So what is that? Yeah. It's your fault. It's their fault. It's this group's fault. It's, you know, never looking at themselves. And that's.
Yeah. Well, it's easy, isn't it? If you push it all away and say it's somebody else's fault, then at least momentarily. Well, for a little while, it's going to catch up. It's inevitable. It has to catch up eventually, even just in terms of the quality of living, quality of experience. You know, if you're in denial, if somebody's in denial about stuff, and we all are, because it's so multi-layered. So we have to stay, okay, I don't know everything, you know. Apart from me, I know everything. No, you don't know everything.
No, you don't. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm having the honor of talking with Malcolm Bruce, and the album Heavenly Cream, by the way, an acoustic tribute to Cream. I say album, of course, digital, CD, and vinyl, which I think is very cool, on November 3rd, released on November 3rd. So there's so many things that, you know, I want to talk more about the album, but growing up, you're talking about, you know, being the son of Jack Bruce, and you talk about admiration, etc. Tell us about that. I mean, make it very open.
I'm still kind of trying to figure it all out, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just love my dad. It wasn't an easy relationship. He was quite kind of highly strung, creative type chap. You know, he was quite open about his addictions and things like that. So there was all that stuff going on, but he maintained an incredibly high level of creativity. And he always encouraged me to find my own way within creativity as well. So yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I'm still, again, my approach to my own experience is just that daily thing of, you know, I kind of frame my day with meditation and yoga, but then I'm just working on music. I'm practicing, I'm writing, I'm making a new record of my own at the moment. So I'm writing a lot and I'm studying and, you know, playing 3 instruments. And he was like that himself. He had a natural talent, but he also just put in time to doing it, played live for years and years and kept working and writing. And so I guess that's what I've inherited from him. The desire and the motivation to make stuff in sound, you know, and that's it really.
I'll top there. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Louis B. Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland, copyright B. Free Radio Limited 2023, produced by the lovely Miss Money Face in cooperation with White Rabbit Productions. Louis B. Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland is an adult-oriented show intended for and only for a mature adult audience, whatever that means. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Okay, disclaimer and ID. And okay, so
excellent. I haven't even sworn once yet.
Gets the operative word.
I'm not really a swearer. I mean, only if people goad me, if they say, go on, use the F word, then I might, but not normally.
Well, not normally. Yeah, it mentioning it. I hope you don't mind if I put this in, but in my very, very early days on radio, I asked an author to read something towards the back of his book. And he said, well, Lou, you know, you've read it, right? I said, oh yeah, that's why I want you to read. Please read it. And he said, you know the word in it? I said, I know all the words in it. He said, but I said, just Robert, please. So he reads it and the F word was in it. I didn't do it for shock value. It wasn't, and again, I was new and the general manager of the station informed me a couple of weeks later, we got a letter from the FCC and somebody had reported it. Explain yourself. You're going to fill out the letter for the FCC. And all I did was say, I felt it was part of the artistic content of the show. It wasn't made to shock and fortunately, never heard from them again. But I was very cautious after that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's different now.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the F word swear words can be incredibly creative, can't they? And there's a lot of nuance in them. So you can use them in different ways, depending on the accent. But there you go, you know, depending on the accent, you know, etc. Just go on forever. I mean, and that's, you know, that's music, you know, that's music.
Crack me up. Malcolm Bruce, the getting into meditation.
Yes.
And yoga. Can you share with us about how that evolved or transpired? Or
sure, yeah. It was actually my girlfriend at the time that was recommended from her GP, and so we went along to an introductory lecture for transcendental meditation, and so we learned, and I've just kept going with it for many years now, and it's an incredible tool, but it's more than a tool. It's simply who we really are. So I think it's just a very simple way of sinking into the self, sinking into the deepest part of ourselves, which, because culturally speaking, we tend not to know that exists. We tend to live on the surface of the mind. So we're living kind of within a narrower perception of what's actually going on here. But what we really are at the source is pure consciousness, which recently was discovered to be the same as the quantum field in quantum mechanics. So basically at the root of our consciousness is the source of all creativity, the source of all manifestation within the appearance of a universe. And then beyond that, what is realized is that there is only consciousness. So the idea, the kind of Newtonian, the classical idea that there's a physical body here with a brain that houses consciousness, and we're looking out into a three-dimensional world, and we've got to we can't walk through walls and all that kind of stuff because they're rock solid, actually is a bit of a misunderstanding. All there is consciousness experiencing itself subjectively, including the idea of Malcolm making a choice to say these words. But there's only one thing ever happening. And so this is itself, within itself, experiencing itself. And that can be liberating for many, because there isn't anybody here really, but in the appearance of diversity, with all of us doing stuff and trying to figure stuff out and trying to be better and more, if we just actually realize that it's just happening to itself, then we can give up the maintenance of trying, the maintenance of being right, and actually just be much more fluid with what's happening. And ironically, when that happens, it still happens. So we still are appearing as an individual who's might want to learn French or get on a plane somewhere or be a pop star or have, be in love with someone and have a family or what, what I mean? It's like, but we're not so living in the illusion of having to be somebody and believe something, and just let things, instead of that, maybe just allow things to be what they are. We can move towards world peace. We can move towards greater happiness within the self, which means we're far more likely not to want to steal something that doesn't belong to us from somebody else, or et cetera, et cetera. So it's great. It's who we are. It's not, you're not adding something by meditating. And I guess prayer in different traditions is a very similar experience. So, it's the sinking deep inside and connecting with the intelligence, the higher power of what's really going on. I suppose in the Christian tradition, one interpretation is that there was this innocence, and then there was the fall of Christ consciousness into the intellect. So the fall of the intuition into the intellectual functioning. And that's where all the problems have started. And then the resurrection is coming back to Christ consciousness, coming back to unity of experience without separation. And then things become much easier again, and much more, the experience is much more divine. I mean, I don't know, I'm trying to frame it as a Christian concept, but it's just who we are. And so if we sink to that ground root of the self, everything starts to take care of itself, because we're experiencing the fullness of the self rather than just a little surface part of the self, which is usually less aligned with the true experience. I don't know whether that is really explained.
I love that. No, Malcolm, Bruce, I absolutely love that. Again, folks, the new album, and you are going to love it, on the 3rd, November 3rd. It's titled Heavenly Cream, an acoustic tribute to Cream, digital, CD, vinyl. You're going to love it. I don't know how else to say that. I just blown away by it, blown away by it. I want to mention, Malcolm, Fake Humans, your new album that's coming out, a little bit about if you will.
Yeah, it's called Fake Humans and Real Dolls. I'm still in the middle of making the record. It's really interesting. It's been an interesting journey. I'm just like at an incredible place in my own life, just discovering who I am at the moment, whatever that is, or my experience, and also just looking at how the world is. And I think we're all in an incredible time. What is going to happen to this planet, with technology, with artificial intelligence, with human behavior? We are at a crossroads right now. It's probably the most amazing time to be here in terms of history. So yeah, I'm trying to express that within this record somehow. So yeah, there you go. It'll be out next year, and I'll be touring.
You will? Will you be touring in the States?
I very much hope so. Yeah, absolutely. Probably not until September or October next year, but yes, planning to come through of the states, yeah, I'd love to. So I'm working with it.
I'd love for you to. It'd be great. I would love that. One of the things that interests me is, how do you know, and I've thought this about author, how do you know how did you know when Heavenly Cream, trying to think of the words, so I'm struggling a little bit, sorry, when it's done? Because then it's like, okay, press it, release it, whatever, you're turning it over. You understand what
Yeah, I mean, I think, okay, so I mean, I think a good producer helps. So Rob Cass, who produced the record's great. So he's really at the helm, not in terms of all the performances, but in terms of a good producer guides the project to what we've termed, or what you're describing as completion. And I guess nothing is ever complete, but there's a point where you understand something as complete within itself. The mixing process is really important. The mastering process is really important. But in terms of recording for this record, we took an organic approach in the studio, in the sense that modern recording, sometimes you record everything separately, one part, then you overdub another part, then you overdub. But with this, we actually had all the musicians together in a room performing. And so that approach, which is the old school approach, I suppose, I'm simplifying it because loads of people still do it that way, but I think that's an approach that keeps the rhythm of progress within a project, because then you're not messing around, getting stuck on one instrument or whatever. You're just getting the vibe, you're getting the feeling in the studio between a bunch of human people performing. So finished, I don't know. We worked on arrangements. We got the right musicians together. We kind of made decisions about who's going to, we worked with the guest artists and, who's going to sing which song, and who's going to play on each track. And I think we did okay. We got the right and good combinations of people. And, when you have Ginger Baker in the studio, for instance, I mean, Ginger, he's not going to waste, I think we did maybe 2 takes on each song. So we're not doing multiple takes of a song and then having to figure out which is best. He's coming in and he's performing the song, and then that's it.
Ginger.
And so Ginger, yeah, we're not, a lot of these musicians, they're so good at what they do. We don't need to mess around. We just come in and we do it and it's done. And that's what you're hearing. You're not hearing, too much. We're not overthinking the process. And I think with this kind of music, you don't want to overthink the process. You don't want to spend 6 weeks on, the cowbell or something. You just basically want to go in the studio and put the music down. And then, yes, there's a few things that we fix. We have modern technology, so we can edit, and maybe we'll overdub the guitar solo or redo the lead vocal or whatever. But generally speaking, we're capturing the performance. And so it's the record. That's what recording was originally. It was the record of a performance. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, there's incredible things about, I run Pro Tools in my studio, and there are incredible things about modern recording techniques. There's just so much you can do. And that's really useful and has become an integral part of the recording medium. But there's also something really beautiful about just capturing something that's being performed. And so I think overall that's what you're hearing on this record is, generally speaking, the basis of it was, live performance in the studio.
I do want to alert or mention to people that are contacting me and emailing me, the album was recorded when they're asking about Ginger Baker. If you hear go back when we're done and listen to the early part of the interview with Malcolm.
2018. Yeah. It was
and then and because people say he's dead, it was recorded.
Yes, quite a few years ago now.
A year before he passed, correct?
Yes, he passed in 2019. Yes, he did. And I was actually with his son Kofi the day that Ginger passed. We were playing a concert in Glasgow, my dad's hometown. So it was kind of a weird. Kofi was, we played that night, so he sort of did that in honor of his father. It was a really moving few hours. Let's put it like that. But yes, it was
interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, Kofi's definitely worth checking out as well. He's an amazing, he's like taken what his dad Ginger did and sort of made it his own as well. So Kofi's amazing. It's a whole other story, but yes, we recorded this in 2018. Ginger passed in 2019, and it's only just being released now for a multitude of reasons. I think the pandemic being one of them, one of the main reasons. Just kind of slowed everything down.
Well, I'm glad I'm here to enjoy it. So you said whatever, because it's absolutely incredible. You're going to love the album, folks. And we've got links up at louisfreeshow.com, wfmj.com, etc. Or you can go to quartorecords.com or the album. So again, all that contact is up and available. Malcolm, the song selections, I didn't even mention the song selection, which I love. How did it come about these?
Yeah, I think the basic group of songs was chosen by Pete Brown and Rob Cass, the producer. I think I did have a chat with Pete about it, but it was kind of obvious, like, which songs should be on the record, with a few exceptions. There are the well-known songs from Cream, like Sunshine of Your Love, White Room, I Feel Free, Crossroads. There are songs.
Tales of Brave Ulysses. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Tales of Brave Ulysses, exactly. And then there are some slightly less obvious ones like Sweet Wine, We're Going Wrong. Badge is another really obvious one to do. So, I think
Deborah.
Yeah, I think I think it sort of makes sense within itself, the songs that we chose. But it is an amazing thing. I mean, they were only together for less than 3 years, but there are a lot of songs. I can't remember how many. When I did count them at one point, there's quite a few to choose from.
I'm delighted with some of them. A Theme for Imaginary Western, which has always been a favorite of mine. I'm not going to go through them all, folks, because about which ones I like. Badge, I love. I think it was, what was it? Royal Albert Hall. There's a version of, I can't remember what year of Badge that I love. I Feel Free, and shout out to Deborah Bonham. That is a song that I hope you don't get me in some copyright violation or something. For a long time, I would open the show with I Feel Free. Louis Free,
cool.
I Feel Free. Yeah, for years. That's just a favorite. And so many others. Some, like you said, Born Under a Bad Sign, Politician, Sitting on Top of the World, Spoonful, Take It Back, Crossroads. It just brings back. And for younger people, I'm going to say again, to be introduced to this phenomenal music is fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's a really important body of work. I think Cream, I guess, as I said before, I'm completely subjective, but I do feel it's really important music, within the popular medium, because there is a kind of window to something else, a window to improvisation that's rarely heard in that genre. It's music that's based on that openness, even though there are these songs. You start listening to Cream when they played live, and they would do, the 25-minute version of Spoonful, where they just go off.
Oh yeah,
on a musical journey, and they didn't know what was going to happen from one moment to the next. They were just feeling it out, and I think that's a really exciting thing. That's born of the combination of my dad and Ginger's understanding of jazz music and the blues, and then Eric's mastery of the blues as well. So it contains so much. I think a lot of bands at the time are brilliant. The Stones, incredible. The Kinks, the Who, they're all incredible bands, but they were different kinds of bands.
Much different. Yeah, I agree.
The Beatles, amazing. The songwriting, is incredible. But Cream had this thing where they could just jam, you know, they could just get into the moment and they could take off somewhere. Which
and
is
that synergy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
The synergy was just amazing. Was it, Malcolm Bruce, since you shared some of the things about your dad when you were young, just even having Jack Bruce as your dad doing this, was it emotional at times for you? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like we all have parents, and they
for better or worse,
and they move on, and then we have to resolve those things. And it's never, you know, there's that father-son thing, which is unique in the same way that the mother-son thing is unique in its own way. So, you know, that we have to work through that stuff, and become autonomous. You have to, you know, if you're going to become a mature person and not codependent, you have to work through that stuff, and you have to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. And part of that is about letting go and accepting things for what they are. You know, it's hard for me to tell because I'm sure everybody's got their own story, you know. Mine, I guess from some perspective, mine is special because my dad was a particular person or whatever, but also he was just my dad as well.
Your dad, when you say that, I just, in all openness, I'll say challenging relationship with my father. And when I've talked with people about some of the things, they say, wow, well, I said, I love him. I still love him. I miss him. It's just, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think
what it was.
But it can be really challenging, and it can be really traumatizing. It's just the nature of families. But then what we do have is the ability to emancipate ourselves, you know, and then to let go of the negativity, to not be in denial about things that might have happened. But we don't want to hold on to stuff. And that's just one of the biggest lessons in life, you know, to come back into the light, as it were, you know, to not, and you know, it's a huge lesson that we can be fully conscious, and that whatever we choose will be reflected in our experience. And so, you know, if we choose to go, well, it was a really difficult time, and I feel really bad, man, and you know, I just never going to trust anyone ever again. You know, and it's like you will then manifest that kind of, you will tend to manifest that kind of experience. Whereas if you're like, yeah, well, you know, there were challenges, but from this perspective, from this vantage point, I love my dad and I'm proud of him, and he was a human being. He was not infallible. He had complexities that may or may not have been resolved. That was his job to resolve them or not to resolve them. It wasn't my job. And I can see that now. I might not have seen that at certain points during our relationship, but I just think that it's idealistic to think that perfection exists in human terms until we all meditate. Then we transcend all the negativity. But you know, but that's a whole other story. But what I mean is, just in the normal sense of what humans are experiencing right now on this planet, we have to be forgiving. You know, we have to be compassionate. There is a cognitive functioning of consciousness where all of that disappears, and there's just a completely different kind of higher consciousness that precludes negativity. But we're not really there yet in terms of humanity. So we have to practice forgiveness. Otherwise, we're just perpetuating more of the same. And that's on a localized microcosmic level within the family, and it's on a macrocosmic level between nations and religions, and you know, all of those things. We've got to realize that, you know, before we annihilate ourselves, and then it will just be the insects, and you know, which is maybe that's better.
Maybe that's better. Maybe they do a better job.
I would think so. No, I still have absolute faith in humanity that they'll turn themselves around. But you know, we have challenges. We have sociopathic people in the world that think they know something that the rest of us don't, and they're trying to manipulate us, and then we have all the kind of lower baser instincts, the greed and all of that stuff going on, and it's within ourselves and it's within everyone else, and we have to wake up to I'm getting all profound at this point, but
it's wonderful. No,
we have the opportunity, right? We all have that opportunity. What are we giving, and what is our intention? Is our intention to try and beat someone else and take something from them, or is our intention to be loving? And what are those differences? What is the cost of being loving? For some people, it appears that you don't get a good outcome, but the more of us that turn that around within ourselves, the more likely we're going to create a better world. And that world might still include, free market capitalism and competition, which is actually a natural aspect to who we are. I want to be able to listen to somebody else play an instrument and be blown away, and makes me practice harder, or it opens up my mind to new possibilities. I think competition is a healthy thing, but not at the expense of other people's well-being. I think there's a way
to do it.
Approach. Yeah.
I love that you're sharing this with us. I've got to tell you, Malcolm, I've got copious notes and papers, and this has gone entirely. I don't want to say entirely. It's gone in a different direction than I thought.
Would you can reel me back in and ask?
Absolutely not. No.
Seriously, I want you to ask.
Wait, Malcolm. Absolutely loving it, because I'm getting a wonderful things from you that I didn't anticipate. The philosophies, the talking about loving and forgiveness. That's beautiful. That's, oh God, I don't want to say, as opposed to the music, the album, I love that, but learning about you, who's making this music, that you have, because sometimes people will say that a certain musician or writer or whatever is arrogant. And I think about musicians. I mean, I think about, in fairness, you step out on a stage and people are screaming for you. It's got to be challenging sometimes to separate from the ego with that. People want your autograph, it's like, oh wow, so, they're enthralled when they meet you, etc. And to know that you are grounded in your beliefs,
No.
It's beautiful. I mean, grateful that you're sharing.
All of that stuff is fun too. It's fun.
Sure, yeah.
It's all good. But yes, I think there's an integrity that we are missing sometimes in the world at the moment. We're living in a sort of strange time. And we desperately need to get back to integrity, not the narrative of integrity, like I'm reading, I have got integrity, but I sort of just like, hi, I'm a politician and I'm here to tell you that I am got integrity. And it's like, oh, okay, then you've got integrity. Well, you must be right then, because they said it on TV. No, I mean, it's bonkers. Like, and there are people, you see it, especially in the US, of course you see it in all places and in the UK as well, but it's the most extreme version in the US that you have this polarization. And in the past it's been between the left and the right, but those ideologies don't even really exist anymore. It's just become a kind of sickness, an obsessive sickness about which color you like. Do you like red or do you like blue? Can I have puce, please? No, there's no puce allowed. It's red or blue. And it's like, it's just a stupid game that's completely getting in the way of actually making any substantial change for the people that matter, which is the people. It's not the elite, and who are essentially like the sort of middle people for the corporation or corporate military industrial complex and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, there's nothing wrong with all those things. It's all great. Money is great. Success is great, but don't dupe the people Like, because really the people in America, for instance, are wonderful people, but they've all been mind controlled to sort of not be themselves, not just live their lives and have a wonderful time. It's all just out of control, in my opinion, and it's a global phenomenon. So to me, in my own small way, if I can say that, then I'm going to say it. Let's all grow up a bit and calm down while we're doing it.
You mentioned that it's people. I find I should say, I don't want to be that general, but a lot of the people that you're referencing, the ideology, nobody wants to listen.
Mm-hmm.
No active listening, and I see it constantly where you can tell the other person is just like they want to get their words in. They're not listening. They're thinking about what they're going to say next, and that's really troubling to me. You ought to be able to say, I like your idea on this. That other one is absolutely insane. This is interesting to me. I just don't.
Yeah, but again, it's this thing of not understanding what's really going on here. If we have the experience of the absolute, and all traditions talk about the absolute, whether it's God or the absolute or whatever, however it's described, it is an actual experience. It's not a belief system. So you can have all these belief systems and you can have all these ideas about right and wrong, but none of it means anything, because if we don't experience that ground state of being, once we experience that, it puts everything into perspective, because you're going beyond the hierarchy of thought to the source of thought, and then you're transcending the source of thought itself, and you're just experiencing pure awareness beyond conceptualization and all the things we're talking about, in terms of polarization and opposing points of view and arguing, and that's all conceptual. In the same way that this is a microphone, I have learned to call it a microphone. I can guarantee you, when I was 3 days old, I didn't know it was a microphone. I just didn't even know it was there because I couldn't even open my eyes. So, it's taken me a few years to now understand this is a microphone.
It's a microphone.
And it looks a little bit like those other microphones, but it's like, it's not better or worse or this or that. Or it's just a concept. It's a bunch of sensory experiences that I've then forgotten are just sensory experiences, and I've abstracted an idea that's somewhere floating around habitually in the appearance of a mind, but who cares about any of that? We just, there's food, we can share the food, we can share the resources, not in a communistic way or a capitalistic way, but just in a integral way. Like, who cares about anything else? Because we're not taking it with us when we're dead from this experience. It can't, the gated community, because everyone's got killing each other outside the gate. I mean, like, what kind of world are we living in? What are we doing here? We can turn it around, but it has to come from the realization that we're living superficially in our intellect and we're not connected to source. And so once we connect to that source, and I'm not saying TM meditation is the only way, because there are many ways to do it.
Many paths.
Once we start to connect to that, things can start to shift and change, but I mean, it's just crazy right now, isn't it? The world.
It is. And I've always been optimistic. Want to look on the brighter side, the positive side. And it's more of a struggle. I've got to say, I still am, and the way I feel, and people interpret this however, short of I'm going to do air quotes no one's going to see except you, glimpse of God, whatever that means, whatever, an awakening, a spiritual, an awakening. I'm not sure. I'm concerned for the world.
I mean,
you are.
Like in the transcendental meditation movement, the organization there, for instance, and I know this is happening in a lot of other organizations too, but they're actually organizing a group of 10,000 people in India at the end of this year to meditate together. Wow. And the idea with that system of thinking, the idea is that if you get the square root of 1% of the population to meditate together, it will lower the crime rate. It will actually create peace, so that you don't have to have everybody doing this mental technique of meditation. But if you get enough people, it creates waves of a settled environment into the environment. It settles things. It calms the environment down. Like if you sometimes people walk into a church or they walk into a mosque or whatever they happen to be involved with, and there's a settled atmosphere in that place, because everyone has gone there and been calm and peaceful and connected with the deeper part of themselves. And so in that same idea, the more of us that just cultivate a calmness, the more that can actually, and I sometimes I'll just go, I'll walk past someone, or I'll meet someone, or I'll stand next to someone in a store or whatever, and they just have that energy, and I can pick up on it. I'm like, wow, you're really nice to stand next to. You feel really calm, and that actually has an impact on my well-being, and it makes me question any, wow, maybe I'm a bit uptight today, maybe I'm tense, or maybe I need to relax, because I'm feeling something that's actually really calm. And I think it becomes something that is pervasive within the environment. And so meditation has been proven to lower the crime rate, for instance. And not just TM meditation, that's the system that I understand, but there are many different forms of prayer and meditation. And also, forget all that nonsense, just here now, just being a person that decides not to perpetuate aggression on any level, in thought, word, or deed. Just going, okay, I'm not gonna, even if somebody attacks me, I don't have to get them back. I can go, well, I can sidestep that. I could, we all have that choice in each moment, whether we're part of something or not. It's because who cares what you're part of, whether you're part of some system or religion or tradition. None of that matters. What matters is human values. It's all that matters.
Again, beautiful. I hope you don't mind my asking, is there a website or something about that meditation that's going to happen? Or if you...
Yes, I think there is. I mean, I think if people check out transcendental meditation, they can just Google that. And it was brought to the West by a guy called Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
I remember that.
Yeah, he taught the Beatles. They went to Rishikesh in India and studied with him. He taught some members of the Beach Boys and Donovan, the singer, and all kinds of people.
Specific to that event that's going to happen in India. I'll look it up.
You can look it up, like 10,000 for world peace. There's probably like loads of these groups congregating at this point in time. Also, the David Lynch Foundation teaches the TM meditation as well. So David Lynch, the film director, started a foundation, and a lot of that work goes into schools in some of the harder neighborhoods in the US. They go into schools and teach the kids to meditate, and that has been shown to improve lower crime in some of those more ghettoized areas of the US. So it's all positive, but I'm not here to sell an idea. I'm here to. But I think
I'm grateful that you're sharing this. That you're doing this, and again, grateful when we're talking about the release of Heavenly Cream, an acoustic tribute to Cream.
It's all about heaven, man.
Able to
heaven on earth.
Yeah, that we were able to talk about this, and I love that about you. I love your openness about it, and your seeming desire to share.
Well, I mean, I also think it's just like, I don't know, it just feels like a no-brainer to me to be talking about this stuff all the time. Put meditation to one side for a minute. Just that we're at this point where there's so much violence in the world, and it's completely unnecessary. And I'm not going to take sides here in terms of the content. I'm just looking at it from a particular vantage point. I'm not being arrogant by saying that, because I think we can all wake up, and stop it. I'm not a martial arts guy, but I can guarantee you, whoever you talk to that would say, yeah, we don't need to hurt somebody. We can neutralize the situation.
Neutralize.
And there are incredible ways of doing that, whether it's Aikido, some of those techniques in Aikido, somebody comes for
when
you
you're using-
and then you go alongside them. You don't stop them by resisting.
Of course. Yeah.
Suddenly you're moving alongside them. So you're neutralizing it. And I think with war and aggression, if Hamas, like, that atrocity doesn't justify killing 8,000 people, there's got to be a way of neutralizing. We have to find a way to neutralize evil instead of the reciprocation of evil. And I'm not claiming to say, because other people would argue that's not the correct approach. The other people would argue that Hamas needs to be wiped out for there to be peace in the Middle East. I don't claim to have the answer on that level, but on another level, I believe that there has to be a way of neutralizing things.
There's got to be around the world, and all the
long term, short term, whatever. And I think that this is the discussion we should be having, not just about arms and violence and who's right and who's wrong, because none of that means anything when people are dead. Who's right or wrong if there's a 7-year-old girl lying in the gutter dead because the bomb dropped on her? There's no right or wrong about that.
So the other side justifying the slaughter of children
on any side, on every side, like it's just insanity.
It is.
And then we can rationalize everything, but at some point we've got to grow up, and at some point we've got to start having proper conversations about this stuff. And it's complicated. In the relative, it's complicated, but in the absolute experience, it's simple. It's like no more. So anyway,
it makes me think of very briefly Rodney King, who was beaten, and then there was a riots, and Rodney King said, when I get chills thinking about, can't we all just get along? Can't we all just get along? And this was a guy that had been brutalized.
Well, Martin Luther King is a great example. The very simple thing he said, which I don't know word for word, but he said something along the lines of, I want there to be a world where my children are judged by the quality of their character rather than by the color of their skin. And, so, I mean, I stand with all people of color against racism, but I'm not sure Black Lives Matter's helped that much, because it just reinforcing this division where we shouldn't be judging people based on their race or the color of their skin. We should be judging them. We should be
character. Oh, sorry.
Absolutely. And I think, but it is complex, because the trauma of oppression and racism and all those things, I can't understand that. White people can't understand what it must have been like, or is like for people of color in this world, and all those things that have gone on. So I'm not trying to claim any knowledge of that, but I do believe what Martin Luther King said, and I think that that's the way that's where we should be living from. So
absolutely, and again, I'm just so grateful that you're sharing, that we can have this conversation, that I can have this conversation with Malcolm Bruce. I just love this. I love this about you. Again, with all the other things that you've done, the music, that the new album, which I love, of course, Heavenly Cream, that we could go in this direction. I'm honored and I'm grateful. And I hope thank you. Yeah, when you said reel me in, no way. I'm giving you more rope. I'm giving you more rope.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm giving him the entire noose. He can hang himself in.
No, it's beautiful. It's seriously beautiful. I'm truly and deeply touched by you and your words and how you are expressing what you're expressing. And I'm grateful. I hope you and I can talk again. I'm so eager for the release of Heavenly Cream. I hope I wasn't too wacky.
No, you've been amazing. No, I'd love to talk to you about my record when it's due for next year and stuff.
I'd be honored. The fact that you'd suffer my madness again.
Oh, you were more sane than sanity itself.
Can I quote you on that?
You can quote me on that. If it helps, I'm not sure if it will.
I don't know that it'll help, but it's nice to hear.
No, listen, I mean, I guess you having the knowledge that you have a particular condition means something to you, but from my perspective, there's been no evidence of anything that makes that apparent. So there you go. So, you know, it's
Thank you.
that's all right.
I'm sure I'll hear from some family and friends later saying, oh, well, at least you were together for a little bit for that. I'm grateful, Malcolm. I'm truly honored and grateful to have you on, and to know that you're in our world brings me great joy.
Oh, thank you, Louis. That's very kind.
No, it's
I don't know what I'm talking about. Anybody that's listening, I'm just in the moment. I did have a cup of coffee before I came on the mic, so you know, hopefully I wasn't too manic.
I just want to say to you, and I appreciate you saying that my words are kind. My words are 100% accurate. I'm not saying it to be kind, although I like to be kind. I'm saying it because it's real for us. So I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you,
Malcolm. Thank you so much. All right, folks, I will be having some other links up, and we got them up for Malcolm, and wow, it just blew me away.